because it makes weird, boomy, bassy noises.
I think that's good. I think on brand, I think there should be just as much ominous sort of audio suffering happening as possible.
Yeah, it's the one episode we've got a complete free pass for pretty much any audio fuck-ups we want to do. Even if it's not buzzing and it's just like a genuine like giant error or something, we can be like, oh yeah, we're taking the attitude to editing like Lynch does with like CGI in The Return, where it's deliberately bad, you know?
Yeah, we're using the commonplace in everyday for surreal effect.
Exactly. It's true. It's real art. That's
We're making a commentary on the prestige age of podcasting.
Yeah. So let's just get straight into it. Welcome to Real Politik. We're talking David Lynch today because we're all very sad about his untimely death at 78 last week. You know, one of the great artists of the last century, as in up to now, not just the 20th century, because
The last
Mulholland
rolling
Drive,
100 years, yeah.
exactly, Mulholland Drive, Inland Empire, The Return, gotta be counted among the towering heights of his catalogue. So we got a special guest on who is a fellow Lynch fan who's been broken up about his departure from this earthly plane. She also happens to be, I think, a twice before guest on the show.
Yeah, I think this is my hat trick now.
Third time is the charm, as they say. And we've been wanting to have her back on for ages, so unfortunately, we do it in these tragic circumstances, but it's great to have our friend Lilah at Pale Blood Stasi on Twitter, formerly Leech Waifu, back on the show.
Hi. It is great to be here. I am genuinely sad. I think, it feels a bit, sort of mentally ill to say that I feel like my dad has died, but I do actually feel like my dad has died. That is how much I love David Lynch. My actual dad is fine. He texted me earlier to let me know that he has passed his MOT, but
good. Not passed away.
Yeah,
That's
you
the
said
important
pass, I was
thing.
like, fuck, where's this going?
No.
He wouldn't text her to say he was dead, would he?
Car troubles. He might do. I don't know. That would be quite Lynchian if I
He's texted. He's not dead. He's just in the Black Lodge.
Yeah.
There are things between life and death.
Exactly. Yeah, and my dad is the reason that I even got into David Lynch, because my dad is a big Lynch head as well. And so my first experience with David Lynch, I'm just going to dive right into an anecdote, sorry, was staying at I used to stay at my dad's every other weekend when I was a kid, and at my dad's house I had my own TV with a video player in my bedroom, and when I was about 9 years old I watched, as a double bill, really late at night, Full Metal Jacket and Blue Velvet.
Wow.
Absolutely, that's why I am the way that I am. I fully fucking traumatized myself for life.
Every time we get FFF on, he ends up giving away some new origin story of himself, and I think this is kind of your equivalent of that. It makes sense.
The other day, FFF was trying to get me to watch he was trying to use David Lynch's death as a pretext to get me to watch some weird Japanese shit that he thinks is kind of like David Lynch.
But
he's probably right, but it also probably has some stuff in it we don't want to watch.
But Lilah, you were really diving deep into the cinematic highlights of 1986 and 7 there.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it really fucked me up. And to this day, actually, I'm still a little bit frightened of Dennis Hopper.
I mean, that is understandable. Even if you've not seen Blue Velvet, I think.
Yeah, I know.
Particularly
but,
if you have.
fucking nuts in that.
But
film.
I remember coming clean to my dad later on in life that I'd watched these really scary films at his house, and he was like, "Well, you know what we should do? We should just sit and watch all of Twin Peaks." So it was a good father-daughter bonding experience.
I guess you were that deep in anyway. There was no stopping the Lynchification process.
Exactly.
The other day I was watching some movie on my computer, and I think it was a David Lynch movie. I think it was when I was watching the second half of Inland Empire. I didn't watch it in two halves because it was just so challenging. I watched it in two halves because I had to go to bed. I started watching it at 6 a.m. or something.
That's how you get the cool dreams, is to take a sleep break exactly halfway through a David Lynch project.
Yeah, especially fucking Inland Empire. But yeah, I paused it, and then there was all this David Lynch music just coming out of my computer, and I had no idea from what program or whatever. And my first thought was damn, I just got lynched. And then I was like, no, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't use that expression.
Inland Empire is actually the only David Lynch film I haven't seen. I've yet to watch Inland Empire. It's the only one.
I was saying to you the other day, definitely get on that restoration from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, is it the Criterion one?
Yeah, Criterion. Yeah. I think they also restored the additional hour and a half film, More Things That Happened. Which is basically just Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, The Missing Pieces. Yeah. It's basically that, but for Inland Empire. It makes even less fucking sense, because at least you kind of know all the characters in Fire Walk With Me, The Missing Pieces really well.
That was... I told somebody to watch Fire Walk With Me, and they tried to pirate it, and they just ended up with all the deleted scenes, and they were like, that's the weirdest film I've ever seen in my life, and I was like, well...
Yeah, don't think that's supposed to make.
I don't think there's any film that people have made so many fan edits of, and they're all worse. A lot of the missing pieces scenes are very good, funny, charming, whatever, but they wouldn't have fit in the pacing of the film or with the tone of the main section of the film.
Yeah,
and then there's other ones that are re-editing the whole thing to either remove all the Lodge shit or focus exclusively on the Lodge shit.
I can't imagine wanting to remove that stuff. That's the best shit. But Lilah, my friend Viv did exactly that. She and her friend watched fucking The Missing Pieces by accident instead of Fire Walk.
It must have been the only thing that you could pirate for ages, because I feel like it's too big of a coincidence.
Have you? I know someone that watched. They borrowed the DVDs off someone of Twin Peaks, and they watched the European version of the pilot by mistake. Which, if you're not aware, a condition.
I know about this.
So a condition of getting it funded and made, because it was part funded by Canal Plus, like most of David Lynch's work. A condition of them paying for him to film that pilot was he had to film an ending for it to be shown in Europe as a TV movie. So if the series didn't get picked up, they would still have something for their money. They'd still have a new David Lynch TV movie. So basically, you get the pilot almost exactly as it is, a couple of little edits here and there, and then at the end, there's a tacked on section that's oh, by the way, it was a homeless guy called Bob. Isn't he scary? He did it. But
Bob, that homeless guy.
All the scenes they used for that ended up in the series and are quite iconic. The Red Room was shot for that pilot ending, the original Red Room scene. The scenes of Bob in the basement doing some weird ritual and stuff, and Mike and that, they're all from that ending. But it's edited different, and it's the worst acted stuff probably in the whole series. And it is literally just by the way, a homeless guy did it. It's not good at all.
So I didn't even know that existed. That's great.
No, they put it on a lot of the DVD sets as a curio, but if you're just clicking through it, you're right, okay, we start with the pilot. Do we do the European cut? What's this?
Yeah, I watched that just to be able to tick
at the end of episode 1. What's going on?
I watched that literally just to be able to tick another David Lynch film off Letterboxd during one of my fucking extreme Letterboxd using phases. But the other day I watched Fire Walk With Me, the Blue Rose extended cut, which tries to reinsert most of the missing pieces scenes, not all of them. So I think there's some Ed and Nadine scenes, and they're kind of quirky.
Did they cut quite a lot of Kiefer as well?
There's a scene where Cooper goes and talks to him actually that they cut from a movie. Yeah.
And there's a couple more scenes with him and Chet Desmond and that in it anyway, with the extended fight scene and stuff like that. It's quite good.
No, honestly, they basically re-add in all the stuff from the really long prologue that is not set in the town of Twin Peaks, which I fucking love. Like, when we did the Tim Peake's Farron Walk With Me radio play, like, I made sure that we had a long prologue at the start of that Tim Farron did not appear in at all, just to ape that formally. But I thought it was pretty good. The one downside to the Blue Rose cut is that the guy who made it had some export issues, and so there's noticeably lower audio quality on all the deleted scenes that he's reinserted, although there is an element of academic interest to that, in that you can tell
which bits.
You can tell which bits, yeah. So it makes the film flow less seamlessly, but as a nerd, you can be like, oh yeah, cool, that's not in the original.
I can't believe some random nerd who wants to be completist is less adept at editing films than David Lynch and his close collaborators. Who would have thought?
Yeah, I'm doing a Twin Peaks rewatch with my partner at the moment, and I'm really excited to get to Fire Walk With Me and The Return, because he hasn't seen those, so it's going to be like a real treat.
I was saying to you, push through to get to it as well.
That's the real
James
shit.
Early road trip, you know, the fucking Civil War reenactment arc.
I love the Civil War reenactment.
But, like, I just,
James is cool, man.
James is cool.
I am hating. I feel like I'm older now, and so I don't find James annoying. I sort of feel like he's just a small boy I need to take care of.
Yeah. He means well, you know.
Yeah.
Playing at being a character, isn't he? Like, the whole time.
Yeah, basically.
I was saying to you the other day, Lilah, that Fire Walk With Me and The Return are the real shit. The Return is probably the realest shit, because
it transcends all visual media, basically.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, it's just the best thing ever made.
Absolutely. But, like, on a purely kind of, like, auteurist level, Twin Peaks is the brainchild of David Lynch and Mark Frost, and David Lynch is not involved. And in fact, Mark Frost was not really involved in sort of the middle
really
stretch of
yeah.
season 2 of Twin Peaks. And then Frost didn't return to co-write Fire Walk With Me. So The Return is the only time that you get a Twin Peaks property, to use the kind of corporate fucking expression, that is entirely directed by David Lynch and written by him and Mark Frost, because they had a team of writers and a team of directors on the original show. Although, as I understand it, in a lot of the second season and all of the first season, Lynch still was very involved in the visual style and what the directors that he'd personally handpicked brought to the table. So it still feels like him.
He was also making Wild at Heart, so that's why he was away from the set for long periods of time, even before it went south.
Yeah, Wild Heart, a severely underrated piece of
cinema. It's both one of his lesser films, and it's great. Also, it's really entertaining, and
it's so fun.
Yeah,
but it's based on a novel, isn't it? He didn't write it. Yeah,
Barry
Gifford. I think you can tell.
He made some changes to it, like he added the happy ending.
The ending is the best. I'm sorry.
The ending's great. So, like, every single time, including right near the end, when Nicolas Cage starts banging on about his jacket, it's like absolute top tier cinema.
My snakeskin jacket.
Nicolas Cage added in the snakeskin jacket himself.
Yeah.
He requested it especially to have to be in the movie. It's so good.
I wish I explained to about 4 different characters exactly what it means to him. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I wish Nicolas Cage had played a supporting character in The Return with about 5 minutes of total screen time. I just would have loved to have seen him inserted into that world somewhere. Although he has such a big personality, it's possible that his star wattage may have overwhelmed the Twin Peaks universe.
You can. Yeah. He does just radiate main character energy, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I don't see how he couldn't take over at least whatever subplot he was involved with completely. It's just what he does.
There's some movies where Nick Cage is a supporting character though, like Kick-Ass, like fucking what's the other one I was thinking of? Oliver Stone's Snowden. Nicolas Cage plays Snowden's mentor in that. It's pretty middle of a road.
Yeah, I can't imagine it would be.
God, I think Mark Miller might be the actual anti-David Lynch.
Oh yeah, the guy who Kick-Ass is based on the work of.
He's just a weird edgelord conspiracy theorist guy.
And there's a lot of films from Nicolas Cage's dark VOD period of the 2010s where he's in the film for about 45 minutes of the 90-minute runtime and does all his scenes in one location. But yeah, you're right. There's there's a second Lynch Cage project that aired on TV, and it's a kind of surreal, obviously it's fucking David Lynch, Julie Cruz concert movie. Not the.
I downloaded that the other day. I haven't watched it yet, but that was like I was going through all those folders that people were uploading. I was like, right, anything in there I've not heard of before. Get that gone.
Yeah, sorry to clarify, Julie Cruz, not the ancient demonic entity Judy or Jiao.
Yeah.
What's it called? Industrial Symphony Number 9, something like that.
And Nick Cage is in it.
He and Laura Dern are both in it, sort of playing their Wild at Heart characters.
Oh, wow.
I think they're sort of... Have you listened to either of you the 2 Julie Cruz albums that David Lynch produced?
I haven't listened to 2 of them. I've listened to one of them, I think I've listened to
the one that was contemporary to like Twin Peaks, or roughly.
I think they both feature songs that
Floating
appear
into the
in
Night,
Twin Peaks. Yeah, and they're really good. And Lynch wrote the lyrics to them. I think that was maybe one of the first... It wasn't the first musical project he did, actually, because, he was the sound designer on Eraserhead. And in the early 80s, when that became a cult midnight movie, the soundtrack album of Eraserhead came out, which I imagine is a kind of Metal Machine music style listen.
Yeah, well, like, my other big thing that really got me into David Lynch was genuinely that, because so many goth bands that I love cover the Lady in the Radiator song.
Yeah.
Like,
Really?
Like about 5 of them. Like there's a band called Miranda's Sex Garden that do an incredibly weird cover version of it. I think don't like 9 Inch Nails or something do one? There's loads of like old like goth industrial bands that like are obsessed with the Eraserhead soundtrack.
Excuse me, the 9 Inch Nails.
I heard Pixie's version of that long before I'd seen Eraserhead.
Oh, She's Gone Away. What a fucking tune. The 9 Inch Nails song in... I know our boy Disso will hate it because he's just a lifetime Trent Reznor hater, but I love that song that 9 Inch Nails do in The Return.
It's absolutely perfect for that episode. It's like a to like fucking hell on screen.
Did Lynch do a music video for them as well?
I think so, yeah. And like
he's done quite a few music videos and stuff.
Yeah, for Donovan.
But I know that he was very into 9 Inch Nails, like, generally.
Yeah, because Reznor compiled the soundtrack to Lost Highway, which is a fucking great soundtrack.
Yeah, that's got a great Smashing Pumpkins song on it as well.
Yeah, Lou Reed covering This Magic Moment by Doc Pomus. It's got I'm Deranged by David Bowie. How could I forget that? One of the greatest title sequences of all time, I think, for going down the Lost Highway while fucking I'm Deranged plays.
That movie that's my favourite Lynch movie, like pretty much hands down, I think.
It's definitely up there. Yeah, it's one of my favourites, like 100%. It's one I've not rewatched since he died, just because I rewatched it a few months ago. But yeah, brilliant movie.
Just everything about like the weird fucking brutalist house that they live in that is actually like a house that David Lynch uses like in real life is insane to me. Just everything about it is just perfect, I think.
Yeah, I like that it was kind of inspired by the O.J. Simpson trial and him kind of thinking like, has O.J. actually convinced himself that he didn't do it? Like, is there a part of him that maybe believes the shit he's saying, although it's obviously not true? So I love that aspect of it, the sort of like displacement of, because I don't understand how people can commit these terrible crimes and then just go on as normal, because I fucking am racked with guilt for like a factual error I made in a piece I wrote about Bob Dylan 4 years ago.
Yeah, I guess you just kind of need a sort of white-faced demonic entity to come and set you straight.
Yeah, played by a guy who fucking murdered his wife. The cast in Lost Highway is just so gnarly. You got like Richard Pryor deep into his struggle with MS, like wheelchair bound, very frail. You got Robert Blake, noted wife killer and star of television.
He's another one who designed his entire look for the character himself. David Lynch was like, do whatever you want, and he turned up to set with his eyebrows shaved off and that fucking weird hairstyle, and David Lynch was like, perfect.
Blake just gave him a picture of Nick Cohen. He was like, I want to look like this. Yeah, like, I love that movie. I feel like Twin Peaks helped him find his voice, or... No, I don't know. That's kind of a stupid thing to say, actually. I'm sort of thinking aloud. But there's definitely... I feel like his style becomes, like, more clearly defined. Like, Blue Velvet is brilliant, but even a film which has that bizarre fucking Dean Stockwell performance where he's miming to, like, Roy Orbison or whatever.
I love that, yeah.
Even that film, it feels slightly more grounded in the real world than, like, everything from Twin Peaks onwards, with obviously the exception of The Straight Story. I mean, yeah, obviously, like, Eraserhead does not feel grounded in, quote-unquote, the real world, so yeah, my thesis is somewhat flawed there.
I don't know, people would maybe argue with me on this, but I feel like Eraserhead kind of has a coherent story.
Yeah,
more so than Mulholland Drive does, which is just, like, all over the place. Just like a sort of mad, nightmarish experience.
One thing that I think about Lynch, but it's not like a point that makes him sound, like one of the greatest artists of all time, but, like, I think there is something very accessible about most of his films. Like, I got into him. He was one of the first directors I got into when I was really getting into film as an art form. And I got into him, like, at the same time as I got into, like, Tarantino and, the big Scorsese movies and stuff. And it's not that Lynch is exactly the same as those guys or anything, or those two guys I mentioned are exactly the same as each other. But, like, there is this element of kind of, like, pulp and film noir and, like, cool gangster stuff with guns and crime to David Lynch movies, if you know what I mean.
The other, like, big kind of surrealist movie guy I think of is Jodorowsky, and his movies are not accessible to most people in the same way.
Like, I saw a list of films that it was on Letterboxd, and it was like films to watch if you like David Lynch, and it was all, like you say, stuff like Jodorowsky or the Buñuel film, The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. That's it. It's all stuff like that, which is great. But it doesn't have the same immediate way of capturing people who have been raised on Hollywood films as Lynch does.
Yeah. I would say, maybe this is just because I'm a massive fan of both, but I would say if you're into David Lynch, you should just sit and watch John Woo movies. Like, I think that they have a lot of big similarities. Whenever a guy jumps out with his double guns and there are rose petals and doves everywhere, like, that's Lynchian to me.
Yeah, his films aren't, like, fucking hard work. And I don't mean to say that anything that is more kind of artsy and is like, let's do something like Lynch, but without the guns and gangsters, that's like a fucking drag to watch, because that's obviously not true. But yeah, I mean, there's something about the way that he took the iconography of mainstream Hollywood cinema and twisted it for his own artistic ends that is like incredibly compelling, whether you're like a hardened cinephile or a relative novice.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think also a lot of people don't get into David Lynch stuff because they hear people talking about how, like, inexplicable and weird and, like, perverted it is. But, like, I think that's maybe a mistake people make a little bit. It's all supremely watchable.
100%. Like, Inland Empire maybe, like, less so.
We'll see.
Yeah,
I'll
we'll
give
see.
you my rating after I've watched it.
See what you think. Yeah, I don't say that as a criticism. I think it's, like, a fucking brilliant movie.
Yeah.
And in fact, Inland Empire still does contain elements of crime and gangsters and prostitution is probably the main crime depicted in Inland Empire. It's such that it is, but it's done in a very surreal way in that after about an hour of broadly being able to follow the plot, you're like, hang on, why is Laura Dern hanging out with all these Polish sex workers now?
That sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. They're portrayed very sympathetically,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, sometimes in life, you're just like, why am I hanging out with all of these Polish sex workers now?
Yeah, literally in Poland, I should add. She's just suddenly in Poland.
We've all been there.
But you just got to go with it. You just got to feel the effect of the film rather than trying to follow it as a kind of prosaic narrative.
Yeah. I'm excited to watch it. I just wish that I had like infinite time in my life to do nothing but watch movies.
If you're confessing to not having seen Inland Empire, then I will confess that there's like 3 of his major motion pictures that I have yet to see. And they're all basically the ones that people say are the most normal ones. I haven't seen The Elephant Man, I haven't seen Dune, and I still have yet to see The Straight Story, although I feel like I really like that one.
I love Dune, but that's controversial. Because even David Lynch doesn't like Dune. But I
think it's his worst film, but I don't think it's David Lynch's fault at all. And there's still bits of it that are like really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think The Elephant Man is, I wouldn't say worst, but his film that grabs me the least. Like, I've never felt like I want to watch it again. Like, I just kind of watched it to watch it.
I'd agree with that. It's his least rewatchable by far, because it is just a well-made, conventional narrative, really.
Yeah.
It kind of got him through the door in Hollywood, though, for a time, obviously, until they stopped giving him fucking money for anything. So it's an important step in his career trajectory.
Yeah, I think that David Lynch's Dune is, this is going to get you cancelled, better than the new Dune, and more accurate to the book as well. And the thing that makes it bad, because it basically is a schlocky science fiction movie, but the stuff that makes it bad is that the studio took out all of the David Lynch weirdness by having all of the characters do constant exposition voiceover.
Oh yeah, that's not Lynch at all.
So like, if that wasn't in it, it would be a much better movie, and like, it wasn't David Lynch that added that in. So yeah.
Wait,
if you gave David Lynch the license they've had with the new Dune films, it would be better than those, and I quite like those.
Yeah, I mean, I like the second new one a lot more, but I thought, I don't know, I really like that first Lynch movie with Sting on crack in his underpants, and like, it's just like a really fun, weird science fiction movie that doesn't take itself too seriously, and also has loads of really fun Twin Peaks cameos in it.
Sorry, left my milk in the other room. What were you saying, Lilah?
Not the milk.
Not the exactly most real politic reason to duck out of an episode for a minute.
Yeah, it'll go cold on you, or whatever the guy says after he gets shot. Do you know what I'm talking about? The bit in Twin Peaks?
That's genuinely one of my favourite scenes from the entire original run. Like,
oh yeah, the old senile guy.
The way the old guy just gives the thumbs up interminably, just
like 4 times.
There's like 4 times you think, all right, that's a long scene, but it's going to cut away now, or something's going to happen now, and it just goes back for one more run. Beautiful. This was on like a big season 2 premiere, you know, resolving the big cliffhanger, and he's like one of the most sort of pure strain Lynch moments of the whole TV series.
The Joe Biden of hotels. What were you saying has all the Twin Peaks cameos in it, Lilah?
Dune does. Dune, like, he basically just used Dune as an excuse. Like, it's got, like, Big Ed is in there, Jack Nance is in there, David Lynch is in there. I'm sure there's somebody else that I'm forgetting. But yeah, it feels like it's just David Lynch having fun with his friends in space.
If David Lynch liked an actor, it's almost guaranteed he'd cast him at least twice at some point in his career. Like, when I watched Wild at Heart the other day, I could have sworn there were more Twin Peaks actors in it than there were in Twin Peaks somehow. Like, and obviously, you've got the ones that are fairly key to it. You've got Sherilyn Fenn in it, and
I didn't recognise her in it, but yeah, she is.
In it.
Yeah, Cheryl Lee.
These are the bits that pretty much weren't in the book, and he's added just because he wants to like cast his favourite actresses in. And then
I would be interested.
You even got weird stuff like Jerry Horn just in it for like 2 minutes, dancing around like a sinister man.
Oh yeah, and Grace Zabriskie is another fucking freaky character. Sarah Palmer.
Yeah, she's terrifying in Wild at Heart as well, but like in a very different way to Sarah Palmer.
Yeah,
great actress, but
absolutely.
I love Sarah Palmer. It's been quite interesting, like rewatching Twin Peaks now that I'm a bit older and various things have happened in my life, and just how like my thoughts of each character have changed. Like the first time I watched it as a teenager, I was like, wow, Audrey Horne is the coolest person to ever live. And now I'm a bit like, wow, Audrey Horne is a really dumb teenager.
And a deeply tragic character in the end as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that the performance of Sarah Palmer is just absolutely... I mean, even like in The Return as well, but it's obviously quite a different performance, but like she is just a mind-blowing actress. Like,
she is
really
incredible.
Makes you feel sympathy for her.
There's a thing that came out, in fact it was sort of the first inkling that Twin Peaks was going to be revived. In 2014 there was a casting call announced for a David Lynch directed Twin Peaks related project, and it turns out it was a little featurette for that Blu-ray they were putting out of all of Twin Peaks up to that point in 2014, and it was a thing called Between Two Worlds, and it basically involved David Lynch as himself in a diner, shot all in black and white, interviewing the Palmer family in character between our world and the world of Twin Peaks. And I wanted to say Grace Zabriskie is incredible in that, because obviously the Palmer family completely torn asunder by the events of Twin Peaks, the original series. 2 out of 3 of them dead. And so you have the 3 of them sat at the table, not interacting with each other, it's worth saying, because presumably they're sort of beamed in from different spiritual planes. But again, I wanted to highlight Grace Zabriskie's performance in that, because the kind of tightly contained rage and sadness, you can feel it like radiating off her performance in that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's just, I don't know, he just had such an eye for actors who I feel like wouldn't have been picked up otherwise. Do you know what I mean? Like, not because they're bad, but because they're kind of the opposite, like because they're just like so weird and so compelling that they're almost like too much.
A lot of little Nicolas Cages.
Yeah, basically.
He got lucky. He was able to be that fucking weird and make it as a star. Although he's not always been lucky in his career necessarily. One guy you didn't mention in terms of being in both Twin Peaks and Wild at Heart, Geraint, is Harry Dean Stanton, who was one of Lynch's most enduring characters.
Him being in Twin Peaks was more an example of what we're talking about, I think. Just got to get Harry Dean Stanton and everything, which I fully support, by the way.
Yeah, why would you not get Harry
one
Dean
of the
Stanton
greats.
and everything?
If he answers the phone to you and you make films or TV, of course you can see if you can get him in it.
Who has been in more good movies than Harry Dean Stanton? He's only in a lead role in like 3 of them, but the amount that he just shows up in, you're like, that's my man. You know, like, one of the fucking greats. But I think
the original Joe Estevez.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'd say it's slightly higher caliber of movies than Joe Estevez for the most part. But you know, yeah, he was in about like 100 movies, and I'm sure some of them are as bad as the average Joe Estevez, not Esther House, the writer, Estevez picture. But I think Harry Dean Stanton, obviously he plays the trailer park owner in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, but then, you know, he was about 90 by the time that Lynch made Twin Peaks The Return. It's a guy, by the way, who probably smoked for even longer than Lynch. You know, Lynch, I think, smoked for 68 years, from the age of 8 to the age of 76, whereas Harry Dean Stanton, as far as I know, probably started about as early as Lynch and was puffing them like nobody's business up until the day he fucking died. By the way, watch the documentary Harry Dean Stanton Partly Fiction, because it has some cool scenes of Lynch just hanging out with him on his couch.
Yeah, I'll have to add it to my watch list.
Both of them just puffing away while Harry Dean Stanton strums the guitar. Like, lovely scenes. Oh, and of course Lynch gave him a musical performance in Twin Peaks The Return. Not at the Roadhouse, but just at his trailer park. But I was just going to say, like, by the time Twin Peaks The Return was made, Harry Dean Stanton was about 90, and his acting had definitely slowed down. He hadn't been in anything for, I think, a couple of years at that point, and you'd be forgiven for thinking, like... He's earned a break, like, he's retired now. But no, Lynch got him out there, and then he died like 2 weeks after the series finished airing. So
there's a lot of people for who it was their last role. Like, Catherine Coulson is probably the best one, because clearly they and she knew she was dying in real life, and clearly wrote her part accordingly, and it's not exploitative at all. This is incredibly powerful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like one of the whole thing. I mean,
Michael Horse playing opposite her in that scene as Sublime. Not dead. Michael Horse, thankfully, still with us.
Horse alive.
Great name. Yeah, Horse.
Yeah.
Both Michael Horse and Horse, the former guest on Real Politics, still with us, thankfully.
No relation.
Michael Horse going very strong, actually. Michael Horse makes jewellery, which you can buy from him on Instagram.
Oh, that's awesome. Get that bag, Michael.
Yeah.
He turned up at the shrine at, like, Big Boy Bob's or whatever that diner was, the shrine that people had erected to Lynch. Like, Michael Horse just, like, turned up to pay his respects. It was so sweet.
Yeah, a real fucking dude. But they filmed the last scene that Catherine Coulson does as the log lady 4 days before she died.
Jesus, yeah.
No, yeah, they obviously knew. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's one of the. I mean, basically the entirety of The Return makes me cry. Like, there's one bit in like every episode, pretty much, where I'm like a wreck.
Miguel Ferrer's scenes are quite difficult for that reason, because he was dead by the time it aired.
And he seems totally fucking fine in it. He seems like fit as a fiddle, to use an expression I drew from Nick Pinkerton's article on The Return that I read yesterday. It's so crazy. Like, you do not watch that thinking this is a dying man.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
But then there's a couple of lines in it that they probably knew he wasn't in good health and wrote them in anyway. Like, writes Gordon Cole to be like, I worry about you, Albert. Sort of really huge emphasis on it.
In the actual universe of Twin Peaks, Albert is the fucking indestructible one. He's the only Blue Rose task force agent prior to Tammy Preston.
By pacifism, that's why. He's a completely non-violent entity, so he is pure within his heart and soul, and therefore cannot be destroyed.
yeah, exactly. Like, in the lineage of Gandhi and Martin Luther King, or whatever he says when Truman offers him out. Oh my god, that's another one. Michael Ontkeen didn't want to return as Harry S. Truman because he'd retired from acting. And so Lynch cast the guy who was originally going to play Sheriff Harry S. Truman in Twin Peaks, but had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. Robert Forster. He might have died a couple of years after The Return came out because he was in that Breaking Bad movie.
Years, he was fairly more recently, but again, there's a lot of cast members of The Return that just aren't with us anymore.
So good, man. I love Robert Forster. I rewatched Jackie Brown the other day, and he's just magnificent in that.
Great in that, yeah.
He's got a twinkle in his eye, if that's how I describe Robert Forster. But no, this is not a Tarantino episode.
On his eye and a JPEG of a fish on his laptop.
That's so crazy when he has like the James Bond fucking laptop in his desk in the Twin Peaks sheriff office. It just comes out.
Just uses it to look at pictures of fish.
He uses it to go on Skype.
Probably to try and get me in a fucking crypto scam. I can't believe it.
We're using this antiquated technology in tribute to David Lynch and
okay,
his
I'll
masterpiece.
accept that. That's the only acceptable reason.
He uses it to call Doc Hayward as well. That's another great thing of managing
who was
to get
also
another.
dying and I think had died by the time it aired.
Well, there's like a dedication to somebody who died at the end of like every episode of The Return.
Yeah,
Death.
Although he didn't appear in it when they bring back his character, they like dedicated to David Bowie as well.
But I know because Jack Nance died like not long after Twin Peaks originally finished, didn't he? I can't remember. He's not really mentioned in The Return, is he? His character.
He appears in it.
No.
Does he?
When
He
Lynch
appears in flashback.
Yeah, when Cooper goes back and changes time, you see.
They obviously do
right.
the slightly altered version of like the first scenes from the pilot.
Yeah, exactly.
So he is in it, and Jack Nance was the guy who was in every Lynch film and project when he was alive. He was like David Lynch's best mate for most of their lives, I think.
We're talking a lot about Twin Peaks. I mean, Lilah, do you have any thoughts on any more Lost Highway thoughts, which you were talking about earlier?
I mean, I love Lost Highway. Lost Highway is another one. I actually did say this on Twitter. My account is locked now, though, so the normal plebs can enjoy my musings.
Ooh, fuck them.
Sorry, listeners. You have to stick
only.
with Jack's thoughts out of the three of us.
Yeah. My incredible thoughts.
Yeah, whenever I've watched Lost Highway many times, and every time I watch it, I come away with different feelings about what it's trying to say and what it's about. My favourite thing, though, is that the first time I watched it, again with my dad, afterwards I was like, what is that all about? And my dad said, well, listen, if you watch the 1946 horror movie Cat People, all of it is explained.
Oh,
and
damn.
Like, what?
I've only seen the trashy, directed by Paul Schrader for money, 1982 Cat People.
Yeah.
Featuring...
Yeah, the one with the Bowie song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great tune. By the way, the version of Cat People, the song, in Cat People, the movie, way better than the one on the Let's Dance album, which is re-recorded and sanitized. It's got that original Giorgio Moroder electronic feel on the movie version. I think that's the one
I think they should
Tarantino used.
Because the original black and white movie, I did actually watch it on my dad's recommendation. Pretty great movie.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know why my dad thinks that it explains Lost Highway, but apparently that's what he's convinced himself of.
I think that's a much more Lynchian way of explaining a Lynch thing than pointing you to a David Lynch explainer on YouTube. Because I kind of think, I totally understand why you would ask that question, but what was that all about? Is, it's a fool's errand asking such a question about David
definitely.
Lynch stuff.
Definitely.
Because I was saying the other day, his stuff has a ton of ideas in it, but it's not proselytizing. He's not writing a didactic screed to put forward some kind of explicit message, which is, some people's remembrances about him have seemed a bit, they'll be like, Twin Peaks was literally saying blah, 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 blah about the FBI. And it's I don't think it was literally saying that. I think it's shrouded in ambiguity.
Sometimes I don't even think David Lynch knew what he was trying to say. He just had a vibe and he was going with it.
Yeah.
I mean, and there are so many themes, because the idea of having a shadow self is in all of his work, right? And Mulholland Drive is very like Lost Highway in that way, where it's these women are the same people, but they're also not. So there's definitely things to think about, but I think saying that anything definitely is supposed to be about something is very I don't know, that's just your opinion, man.
100%. Great David Lynch movie, The Big Lebowski. But if I'm just bitching about people on Twitter, I saw this fucking thread earlier that was the most explicitly anti-Lynch take I've seen since his death.
Was it the one about meditation?
Yes, it was basically saying that his movies were ads for the cult of transcendental meditation.
No. His Twitter and his social media were an advert for the cult of transcendental meditation. Get it right.
Yeah, I know someone who was really excited because they went to this Q&A event with David Lynch, and he was like, it's going to be great. And then he came back afterwards, and I was like, how was it? He was like, it was really weird. David Lynch didn't come out until right at the end. The whole rest of the time, it was just a Donovan concert.
That is awesome. Because he produced some
and then
music
right at the end, Donovan and David Lynch took questions, but only about meditation.
Yeah. I thought that he was going to explain the meaning of Mulholland Drive.
Dude.
But yeah, David Lynch was really in with a lot of these old 60s rock stars, Donovan, Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr, Mike Love of the Beach Boys, because they all love transcendental meditation.
Mike Love is a human David Lynch villain. You could count him. He was probably the number 2 choice for the Man from Another Place.
Yeah, for playing Bob even. Imagine you saw Mike Love just gyrating in the corner of your room or whatever.
I would rather not. Thank you very much.
I don't know how to describe Frank Silver's physicality as Bob. It is so strange. The way he will leer in the corner of the room.
Stalk across the set and stuff.
What was he, a set designer or something?
I don't even think he was a designer. I think he was a builder.
A set dresser.
Just doing some carpentry.
Yeah, that's why he wears overalls. Yeah,
but he was an amateur actor. I know everyone in LA is. He already had his acting card and stuff, but wasn't expecting to get a cast at all.
But didn't he?
It would be guy number 3 in the Roadhouse or something.
Yeah, instead he got to be evil supernatural rapist and murderer.
Genuinely the most terrifying villains of all time in anything.
It's certainly a meteor role, but he didn't get to enjoy the fruits of his newfound fame for long, did he? Because he died of AIDS in 96.
Mid-90s.
Did he really? I didn't know that.
I think so. I think he was an openly gay man.
Yeah, it was still the era where AIDS was running riot, but there's not that many interviews with him because obviously he was not famous for a huge amount of time and it was mostly for this one specific role. But if you do find any interviews about him that like float around on YouTube now and then, he's just this lovely, charming man.
Apparently the nicest guy
like
ever.
The character Killer Bob. It's like it's like the nuclear level version of the actor who plays Father Jack in Father Ted, being this nice old uncle, like charming old comedian guy. You cannot imagine him hurting him a fly, but you kind of expect him to as you're watching him because you just associate him with the character he looks like.
Yeah, man. No, he seemed like, probably had that long hair because he was just an old hippie.
Yeah, probably. Probably
exactly
a Donovan fan.
Didn't Angelo Badalamenti die a couple of years ago?
Yeah, pretty recent. I think, was it last year or was it the year before? It was pretty recent.
Within the last couple of years, I think. It was not long ago. It was well after COVID.
Yeah, he was a real fucking dude as well, by the sounds of it.
Well, I mean, Julie Cruz has also passed away.
As well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So all three of them are jamming in another dimension somewhere, I reckon.
Both she and Badalamenti do musical performances in The Return, don't they? She at the Roadhouse, whereas he is the pianist at the restaurant where Dougie Jones dines with the, I almost said the Mitford brothers, but those were those fascist sisters, the Mitchum brothers.
David Lynch,
Jim
doing
Belushi.
a fucking knockabout comedy about the Mitford sisters.
Yeah.
One of the Mitfords was a communist and two of them were fascists, I think.
Yeah, sorry.
Which a terrible family Christmas. Like,
the
you would hate that shit.
It's much like the Ben family, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
maybe,
sorry,
I
I correct myself, the mostly fascist Mitford sisters.
Yeah.
The majority fascist. But yeah, like, I heard a cool story about Angelo Badalamenti related to the director he probably worked with the most other than Lynch, which was that after, I think, the fourth Exorcist movie was taken away from Paul Schrader in the mid-2000s, Rennie Harlin basically directed an entirely new version of that movie, and no one liked that either. So the studio were like, all right, we'll release Schrader's movie, but we'll give it a limited release. Like, what harm is it going to do? No one liked the other one as well. We might as well try both. And so they put out Paul Schrader's Dominion, prequel to The Exorcist, but he had to really scramble to get it completed, and apparently Angelo Badalamenti, completely free of charge, composed 14 minutes of new music for him to use throughout that movie. And, I think that's real stand-up guy stuff.
Yeah, I guess if you just love making music for The Exorcist.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely seemed like someone who enjoyed what he did. Again, if you watch any of the sort of interviews with him or anything like that, he talks with great passion about the music he makes. There's obviously the really famous clip with him talking about how he came up with Laura's theme from Twin Peaks, but like... Mm-hmm. He's just a sort of passionate old Italian man who loves making music.
100%.
But I'm sure he's done stuff with loads of goth bands as well. He's definitely done stuff with Susie and the Banshees.
Badalamenti, yeah, because so many people love Twin Peaks, they started wanting
basically
to collaborate. So he's worked with a bunch of bands as well and stuff. But just returning to that stupid twat I wanted to air out off Twitter, I got distracted.
Yeah.
The guy who was
enough serious discussion now. It's been almost an hour. It's time to settle some scores.
Yeah, let's get on the beef train.
Fucker. This guy, Matthew Golden. I was more like offended by a follow-up tweet he did than the original stupid tweet he did about how all Lynch's movies are advertisements for a cult. He says, yes, leveraging is the word here. I will say David Lynch's book, Catching the Big Fish, links art and meditation quite explicitly. He says you have to go deep within yourself, closing your eyes and shutting yourself off to the world. I say, touch grass, talk to people, read.
That's incredible.
Like,
surely that's got to be bait.
I don't know. Someone said, surely isn't this bait? And I'm just like...
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's more. You can't fucking tell on Twitter anymore. It's a hotbed of fascist maniac fools. So who knows?
Yeah,
I thought this was.
There's both never been more people engagement farming, and there's also never been more people that genuinely tweet like they're brain damaged.
Yeah, I read this as just somebody expressing their sincerely held opinions in a stupid and inflammatory fashion.
I saw the initial tweet. I saw the initial tweet. It didn't scream bait to me, but whenever anybody says touch grass, I become suspicious.
I fucking hate that phrase. Like, it's just like, it seems like in the last couple of years, everyone is using it. And it's like, I live in the countryside, I go out and take in the natural sights and sounds plenty. Am I fucking happy and satisfied with my life? No. So
I touch more grass than you, motherfucker.
Yeah,
that's what you should say next time.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking rolling in grass.
Yeah, I'm rolling grass into fat zoots and abusing drugs. Yeah, but what pisses me off about that specifically is not so much the phrase touch grass, it's just the combination of that with talk to people and read, because it's like, since David Lynch has died, an enormous amount of his collaborators have come out to say he was a genuine friend to me. Like,
I love him so much.
We had a deep personal connection. I mean, I don't think Lynch had a problem in terms of engaging with other people and the outside world. I'm sure he read plenty of books. I'm sure he went to plenty of interesting places and met plenty of interesting people. But you can't make art like David Lynch just from observing the world around you. I'm sure it doesn't hurt to do that, but you have to reach into somewhere deep inside yourself to make art that is beyond the normal workings of our world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something that's like beyond logic, beyond reason. That comes from an unconscious place. Whether you need to reach that place via meditation, or I don't know, you just wake up from a dream and you're inspired with all these creative ideas. It seems like it was both for David Lynch. But whether you attain that place by like getting fucked up on drugs, if you want to make art like David Lynch that is not prosaic or didactic or prescriptive, you have to think on like a different level to someone who pays attention to the world and wants to comment on that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally does. And I think a thing about David Lynch is that, I mean, obviously he loved movies and he watched a lot of movies, but like his main thing that he did was his funny, weird little hobbies. Like, like for years, the reason that I am on Twitter, I joined in 2009 because I wanted to follow David Lynch, and for like about 5 years, he was the only person I followed on Twitter. And he used to just
tweet that frequently, so that must have been like sort of pronouncements from God every time he did.
Yeah, basically, because he went through a little phase of he would post a little video of his DIY projects for quite a long time, and then he would get other people to send him videos of things that they were building.
Tell them about their weekends and stuff and all this.
Yeah, totally. Like I know he did the weather report in later years, but before he did the weather report, he did my bookshelves that I'm making update and stuff. So he wasn't a guy who was just like soaking in other people's ideas. Like he was doing his own stuff, you know, like making shit and having weird dreams about fish and hamburgers.
If he had a dream about fish or hamburgers and he woke up and thought, I wish to make a film based upon this idea, he would obviously try and preserve that original kind of dream logic. Because if you kind of start thinking, okay, how do I make this make sense, and block it all out, and if you then try and detach your dreamy idea from how a dream would unfold, then you lose the spirit of the idea. And he was so good at preserving that sort of dream logic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's how one of the things that I hate the most in the world when people talk about movies is that like cinema sins logic of like, well, why did they do this? And this thing doesn't make sense. And
There's
it's like,
a plot hole here.
Because if they did it differently, the story wouldn't be good, and you're like, that's the whole thing. Like, and I think Lynch is the epitome of that, where it's like, just don't worry about it. Like, it doesn't matter why this person is acting in a weird, creepy way; they just are. And sometimes you go to a party and there's just a weird guy there, and you just have to deal with it. Like, that's
and he may also
Lynch
be in your house.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, what's amazing to me is that Lynch is more like, the way he approaches movies is so much like a kind of improvisatory musician. Like, obviously, like, one of my favourite artists is Neil Young, and one of the core things about Neil Young's artistic process is it's not an intellectual process at all. It's like from his heart to a scribbling on a page to a performance with a band. Like, that's basically how it goes. Where it's very different to how my other favourite artist, Bob Dylan, will sit and write and rewrite his lyrics over and over again, which is a totally intellectual process. And the thing with film is that while you can scribble down an idea and pick up a guitar and there is the song, a film involves so many stages of production and so many other people, and Lynch would always manage to preserve that kind of purity of the idea and the feeling in his end product.
Yeah, and also, I think a thing that is really worthwhile mentioning is that he would do it without being a cunt to anyone.
Yeah. Everyone likes him, basically.
Yeah,
apart from the small guy from Twin Peaks who thinks he's evil incarnate.
But, like, I mean, so many artists who I admire have, like, abuse allegations or are reported as being awful to work with or whatever, and David Lynch is just like a ray of joy in everyone's life. Like, totally. I do think it's worthwhile to bring up.
As someone who like is basically a mess, who has deep problems and issues, I don't like the way that it has become so axiomatic that, like, no, you don't have to suffer to create great art, because I feel like that's basically saying, all right, normal, well-rounded people, you get another thing. Now you get to be the great artists. And all you people who are fucking suffering while making art, you're just doing this because you want to be like, I don't know, fucking William S. Burroughs or whatever. It's like, let us have something, please. But no, you're absolutely right. Like, David Lynch did not seem to see it as a necessity to draw his art from his own personal suffering.
Yeah, and well, I mean, he said as well, of course, a lot of my art comes from conflict, a lot of my art comes from depression, but I'm paraphrasing, but he basically did say that you cannot create art when that is overwhelming you, so you have to kind of try and find something to work through it, and I think that's how he like comes to meditation, right?
Yeah,
because he's right. Like, you can, if you're just overwhelmed with how shit everything is, then you can't get out of bed, let alone make a movie.
Yeah, that's very true. He had such an admirable work ethic. Like, it's easy to look at his filmography and think, the fuck was this guy doing the last 18 years other than Twin Peaks: The Return? But then, like, you've got to look at his discography. You've got to look at all the short films he made. You've got to look at the ads he directed, the music videos he directed, the Duran Duran concert movie he directed.
Which we love, thank you very much.
I've not seen it. Is it?
You have got a Duran Duran head on the call.
Is it visually striking?
Yeah, I mean, it's good. Yeah, it's good. It's not. I mean, the problem is that Duran Duran are not as good as they were in the 80s, but like it does still go. Yeah.
Oh, cool. But yeah, he released an album literally last year with Krista Bell, who plays Tammy Preston in Twin Peaks: The Return, which was the third album that they collaborated on together, and they're fucking weirdest yet. Obviously, most things Lynch related can be described as like somewhat weird, and it's not like his two solo albums and normal music. He played guitar in this weird way by like tuning it to an open tuning and playing it on his lap, but not like a lap steel guitar where you're sliding along it. He'd strum it but like flat across his lap, and it's kind of like a weird combination of electronic music and blues, and he did quite a good...
Yeah, I will admit, he made some like jazz albums and stuff as well, didn't he? I've never ventured into that aspect of his work.
The Thought Gang album is pretty jazz oriented, but that's sort of more of a Badalamenti thing musically,
right? Yeah,
because Lynch was quite an autodidact as a musician. He was a sort of self-taught guitarist, so I don't think necessarily that jazz was within his capabilities. But with the Thought Gang album that came out a few years ago, they made that around the time of Twin Peaks: Fire Walk With Me, and some of the songs off it are in the movie. And basically what he'd do was he'd kind of tell Badalamenti and his musicians about like an idea he had or a mood he wanted, and then they'd perform something based on that. And I think that was Lynch's kind of contribution then. I think that was before he started playing guitar. But the record with Christabel from last year is so abstract. You've generally got 2 vocal tracks by her, like one in each speaker, and they're kind of overlapping and singing different lyrics and singing at different times, and the music is very spacey and synth based. It's still got a lot of his like trademark 50s style tremolo guitar on it, but his weird solo albums are much more conventionally rock music than the Christabel record. Yeah, but still, that came out last year. Like, he was working till the very end.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I think if anybody had given him money to make another movie, he would have made another movie.
Yeah.
I think it's often been remarked on Twitter and stuff as well. I agree with 100% that, like, it's kind of damning that it was so hard for so long, like 25 years or more, for someone of the caliber of David Lynch to get funding to make the sort of movies he wanted to make. The last theatrical release was Inland Empire, and that was like 1 million years ago.
Yeah.
And there's no way that'd get a theatrical release now.
He had some broad series of talks at various points with Netflix. They obviously put up that short film.
The last major...
actually, we haven't even talked about what did Jack do in that bang.
His last widely distributed
work. And every so
work.
often it would be like, there's talk of David Lynch doing an unspecified series for Netflix, and then it would be like, Netflix don't want it. And then as soon as he died, Netflix were like, it was a pleasure and a privilege to be collaborating with David Lynch on a sadly unrealised project. Like, the collaboration was, you said, no, we won't fund that, or no, you can't do it like that. It's not a collaboration.
Fuck them.
Fuck them.
But yeah, they were the last company to distribute one of his film projects on a major scale in What Did Jack Do?
What Did Jack Do is so
brilliant.
Fucking funny.
Yeah.
It's so fucking funny. And listen, I'm usually a hater and a killjoy, and I hate anything that's supposed to be comedy. But What Did Jack Do is genuinely very fucking funny. Like, I laugh out loud. A piece of bizarre short theatre.
Yeah, 100%.
With the fucking monkey.
One of, I think, the funniest bits in his entire catalogue is when the monkey escapes and he goes to chase after the monkey and he says, "Get him, boys!" And then no one goes after him. No one chases the monkey.
It's so good. The communist monkey, hell yeah.
Yeah. Again, that showcases his love of film noir and the way that he could write that kind of hard-boiled dialogue or a parody of it, really accurately.
And it still is on Netflix, so if anybody has Netflix and hasn't seen it, it's still up there. Watch it while you can.
That's so funny that that's his last film, basically. I know he did other shorts after that, but they were like little things on YouTube. And
it was the last widely distributed one.
Yeah. If you want a short that's not 2 minutes, but like 17 minutes, there's one that he did for, I think, Dior Perfume, or like a handbag, starring Marion Cotillard, called Lady Blue Shanghai, that came out in the early mid-2010s, I think before Twin Peaks: The Return.
Yeah, he did a lot of ads, didn't he? He did like a lot of ads in Japan, right?
Yeah, you gotta get that
Twin
bag.
Peaks is like bigger in Japan than it is anywhere else.
Yeah,
he did quite a lot of ads. Full stop. He was a serious heavyweight of cinema when he died. All the video game sites are like remembering his weird PlayStation 2 adverts that he did. Like they've got to get the David Lynch SEO out there.
Yeah.
There is a really weird video game that is called... Hang on, I'm going to have to remember what it's fucking called now. I know that you hate and despise video games, Jack.
I fear what I don't understand.
This is how I win. The guests independently bringing up gaming, wrestling, all
there's a really
fucking
bizarre video game from Japan called Deadly Premonition, which is
yeah.
like basically just Twin Peaks.
Did you ever see the original trailer for that when it was called Rainy Woods? And it literally was like copyright infringement, the game.
If you want a really bizarre experience ever, I'm sure you can get an emulator and play Deadly Premonition, because it is really broken and buggy, but like on purpose to like emulate the feeling of watching like, Twin Peaks.
It's kind of like if your man who made The Room was the actual guy who came up with and directed Twin Peaks. But, like, all the plot and thematic elements and stuff. Like one of the characters, the first ones you meet in it, is literally Naomi Watts, and it has Naomi Watts what's his face, and like someone trying to do a bad impression of Naomi Watts doing the voice acting. It's just never acknowledged.
What was that original name for it you said a second ago?
Rainy Woods.
Rainy
and then they're
Woods.
like, oh no, right, but we're making it a bit too obvious. We've got to change a couple of the references and call it Deadly Premonition. This is an entirely different plot about weird supernatural forces in a tiny sort of northwest logging town.
Didn't M. Night Shyamalan do a TV series a couple of years ago called like Two Pines or something like that?
Oh, I don't know.
There were a few in like the early years of Netflix doing its own TV series and that sort of thing. There were a few like obvious Twin Peaks influence, but none of them
Well,
had
there
the
is
source.
Riverdale,
Yeah.
which is genuinely inspired by the works
That's
of
more
David
in the
Lynch
spirit,
and
I think,
Peaks.
of Twin Peaks, in that it's subverting mainstream TV a bit, but also kind of embracing it. Like, but it's not for me. I'm too old. It's
and it's
literally,
shit.
like,
It is.
yeah.
It's genuinely it's trash. But you can see what they were going for. And a thing that I
Wayward
find very
Pines.
touching-
Wayward
Pines. That's that's apparently based on a series of novels.
Probably a
Some
rip-off
guy
of
is
Twin
just
Peaks.
like, I'm
Yeah, the
writing some-
novels that came out 2012 to 14, definitely Twin Peaks inspired, I'm going to say. But no, to be fair,
never heard of that.
Wayward Pines is true to the spirit of Twin Peaks in that it appears to have been cancelled after 2 seasons.
Yeah. I will say about the Riverdale thing, even though it sucks and it's like slop for teenagers, I did see on the day that David Lynch died, loads of teenagers being like, I got into his stuff because of Riverdale and I'm so happy that I did. So, like, what can you say?
There's so much stuff that is like trying to be Lynchian at various points in different mediums that at some point someone's going to be like, right, what's this bit trying to take its ideas from? I should probably watch that. Like fucking Alan Wake video games and stuff like that. You know?
Loads.
There's
loads
so much
of
of
shit.
it.
Loads of shit. He is the king.
Is the true surrealist successor to David Lynch not TV's own Noel Fielding?
Oh my god.
Get the fuck.
Yeah, couldn't say that.
Fuck.
Yeah, funny. Announced
True
today.
successor to the late actor Robert Blake.
Yeah, he's don't worry, he'll still sorry to all the fucking menial workers on the Dick Turpin TV series, but he'll still be showing up to work for the Bake Off where he doesn't have to fucking do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
What
very
even
little
was
work
this
for-
Dick Turpin thing? I'd never even heard of it, and apparently it had been out on for ages.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Apple Plus or whatever they call themselves. They're
Whatever
really bad
that
at promoting
fucking
all their
is.
series. They've got some good stuff on there, but like no one knows it exists because they seem to be trying to be upmarket as like a streaming service, and that just means they like don't promote to the likes of us.
Oh, do they do that
And
Severance
yet they've
show?
got Noel Fielding on.
Yeah, they do Severance. They do a really good, silly program called For All Mankind, which is like alternate history. What if Russia won the space race? But like,
Nice.
no one knows it exists.
I'm
They keep funding it
torn
for, like,
between my
another
love
big
of
budget
Russia
series, so-
and hatred of space travel.
Every so often it starts doing something really interesting, and then they'll just have an episode every season and a half or so where it's like the Russians are actually evil all along.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
You
rubbish.
undermined all the good stuff you've done there. But it does acknowledge that there are evil American people as well.
So it's like the man in the high castle, but if the Russians won instead of the Nazis.
Like the entire first series is like one of the main characters gets mentored by Werner von Braun. It's fucking mad. They kill Margaret Thatcher off camera. They're just like
Off camera? They don't even let you
every time
see
they do a
it?
new series, they put up a little video that's like, hey, here's what happened in the 10 years, because they like advance about 10 years every series. Here's what happened since the last series, and they're just like, yeah, the IRA got her. It's probably
We would live in
the
utopia if that happened.
the biggest ratio for like something buried deep in the extended lore of a series, and people on Twitter going like, "Way!"
I'm aware we haven't talked very much about Mulholland Drive today, which is like maybe seen by a lot of people as like the quintessential Lynch film.
It was the first David Lynch film I saw. I'm pretty sure.
Me
Was
too.
it?
Me too.
That's
Literally
that's
when
a deep
what was
thrown in the deep end.
what was the thing that copied Netflix's original business? Love Film. Do you remember Love Film, where you get like DVDs mailed to you?
Yeah.
So you could like put up a list of all the stuff you sort of wanted to see and hadn't got around to, and that.
Yeah,
So,
get a random one. Yeah, I do remember
me
that.
and my then girlfriend subscribed to that when it was first out, because we were just the sort of nerds who were also like young and bored. We were like, right, we need to see all these films. Let's get them on there. And we put that on there and we watched it. And because it's like they're lending you the DVD, they included in the little rental envelope the booklet, the notorious booklet that's like, here's a list of 10 clues.
Oh, with the clues, yeah.
So we were sat there, right, clues, let's properly take these seriously, let's watch this. To be fair, I think we wanted to see it because we'd watched and enjoyed Donnie Darko. Which
no, fair enough.
Like, so that was the fucking the entry level sort of thing, and of course all the clues go out the window like a minute into the film, which is
yeah.
I don't know what the fuck we just watched, but it plays on you and you want to watch it again to like see that sequence or try and figure out
Mulholland
how that
Drive
relates
is
to that.
great.
Yeah.
Mulholland Drive is. I mean, all of his. The bit behind the convenience store with that woman covered in sewage or whatever is just is just terrifying.
Yeah. They really make the concept
I love
of
that iconic photo of just him on set with that actress, and they're just like both smiling in photos.
Yeah.
He really
You can
manages to
explain
make
David Lynch to people in a photo with that.
He really manages to make something otherworldly out of a woman covered in sewage. Just like, how does this creature exist? Where did it come from?
Yeah, man. Mulholland Drive's great. I haven't watched it for a really long time, but like Naomi Watts in it is unreal.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
Jane.
That role basically made her, didn't it?
Yeah.
That properly escalated her towards stardom,
Was she
and
in
rightly
that?
so.
Was she in that before or after Funny Games? I don't know my film history.
I think Funny Games is like 2007, so it'd be a few years
it was
after.
a few years before that. Yeah.
Okay, after. But yeah, no, she was so good in it.
Yeah,
and...
no, I think that film basically made her like the number 1 or number 2 woman for like, right, we're making a slightly odd film.
Yeah.
We need a really good actress to carry it. Because like she, obviously, there's been so many lovely memorials to David Lynch from people he worked with, and hers was literally like, I couldn't get arrested, I could barely get cast in anything at all. Certainly no major roles, and this guy made my career and was like a close friend and mentor to me forever.
I remember watching an interview with her about Mulholland Drive, and she was like, I was really struck as an actress. I'd been auditioning for so many things, and most directors won't even be in the same room as you, but David Lynch actually like sat down and talked to me like I was a human being, which is really nice.
His directing style is quite unusual as well. There's loads of clips of it in the extras of The Return. There's some good examples of it, but he'll have someone doing their scene and he'll be obviously off camera, but he'll be like talking them through the scene as it's being filmed, just making sure that they're not talking over each other, and just edit his lines out afterwards.
Almost like a silent movie director.
Yeah,
which is,
there's a clip of him. You know, Tom Sizemore's character tries to poison Dougie, but then like suffers incredible remorse and starts crying and apologising to him. That scene, there's clips of that, and the guy's like acting a fairly convincing breakdown, and David Lynch is just like, "Yes, the depths of your soul, Michael. Come on." Like,
there's a clip
as the scene's being filmed.
There's a clip of him telling Ike the Spike how to stab a woman with a screwdriver. See, he thought about every angle to the films, you know what I mean? Or like telling the woodsman how to
really drive it in there.
Yeah. It's like, you gotta turn it to the side. We haven't got enough. We haven't really talked about Lynch as an actor. But obviously,
that's the impression sort of put me on that immediately as well. Like, I love the fact that nearly all of his roles are like either slightly exaggerated or slightly underplayed versions of himself, but yet they're all very warm and likeable, and they all hit the mark perfectly.
Yeah, have either of you seen The Fabelmans by Spielberg, where he plays John
Yes.
Ford?
No.
Yes,
I've not seen it.
It's right at the end of it he shows up, isn't it?
Did you watch
I've
it just
seen him
because
in
Lynch
that,
was in it?
Pretty
I've
much.
seen him in
Like,
that
I
Louis
think that-
C.K. thing.
Oh yeah, he was so good in Louis, man.
Yeah.
To be honest, I rewatched like most of Louis recently and didn't mention it at all on the internet for obvious reasons.
Sorry,
We found
I've
the one
opened up
thing
the
that
door
Jack's
to you being
embarrassed to
cancelled
be
now.
into.
I
He's happy
mainly,
to talk all year about listen to loads of Opie and Anthony this week.
yeah, I mean they're not accused of like sex crimes, just
Yeah.
racism
They're
basically.
awful people. They're just not compulsive masturbators.
Yeah, listen,
as
I
far as
still
we
listen
know.
to Burzum, it's fine.
Wow.
All right, that wins.
Is there much musical worth to Burzum? Most of it's
you
kind of
like
like
heavy
experimental.
ominous droning.
Yeah, it's like experimental ambient music because he could only get synths while he was in prison.
Yeah, because he murdered all of his bandmates.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, for stabbing Euronymous to death. Yeah, but no, he's so good in Louis, just like barking orders at Louis C.K. Like,
yeah,
I
what's
said,
the thing where he's...
I said be funny.
Yeah, like... yeah, he's good in that.
And he plays kind of old Hollywood in that as well, much like he does in the Spielberg movie. Somebody representing like an old mode of the entertainment industry. I really love him, obviously, in What Did Jack Do? And obviously in Twin Peaks, but especially The Return as Gordon Cole. And it is pretty funny. He makes himself so much more of a major role in the revival.
It's amazing that a character that basically started as, what if I played myself but also did loads of like old-timey death jokes?
Yeah.
Ended up being just this incredibly like warm human centre while also playing like a director of the FBI.
Yeah. He's like, maybe if I put in a pro-trans rights bit, then people will forgive me for the death jokes. A brilliant gamble that paid off in the end. But I think you need Gordon Cole as a more prominent character in the third series because Cooper is out of action. So you don't have that kind of quirky, endearing FBI guy trying to get to the bottom of what the fuck is going on. And the next most endearing FBI guy in Twin Peaks is Gordon Cole. So you needed him in there because Mr. C is like the most evil character ever created. Yeah. And Dougie Jones just does not have the capabilities to investigate.
Oh, we love Dougie, though.
Yeah.
Lovely Dougie.
Well, most of the comedy in season 3 comes from the Dougie section because, you know, I laughed a lot when I first watched Twin Peaks. I almost kind of watched it as a comedy because the combination of this sort of wacky character-based comedy and the soap opera elements.
Oh, yeah. Invitation to Love is absolutely hilarious whenever it pops up.
Is that the song, the piece of music?
No, it's the soap opera
soap
within
within
the soap opera.
Yeah.
The first series.
With Chet and Jade and Emerald.
Chet arguing about the twins and all this, and then they do it like immediately before Maddie Palmer shows up. There's like lampshading ridiculous plot twists they're about to do themselves.
Chet, not to be confused with Agent Chet Desmond. R.I.P. or whatever. He's not dead, just disappeared. So probably turned into some kind of kitchen appliance. I'd love to hear an album made by toaster David Bowie.
Yeah.
I wish he had actually assumed that form upon his death and continued recording music.
They should get the guy who did the character's voiceover for The Return, because obviously that wasn't David Bowie returning, and get him to like re-record all Bowie's classic albums.
Well, Bowie was
in
really
a slightly more convincing redneck voice than Bowie was capable of.
Well, Bowie was really embarrassed by that accent, and he insisted that in the flashbacks where you see his character, his voice be overdubbed by an actual southerner. Are there any other great Lynch performances to talk about?
Well, he is in June, but only for about 3 seconds.
He did star, speaking of his great old mate Harry Dean, he did star in, I think, like the third movie that Harry Dean Stanton had ever got to be the lead in, which came out basically when he died, which is a movie called Lucky, and Lynch plays like a regular at the bar where Harry Dean Stanton drinks in that or something. But again, he's just kind of doing David Lynch, and it's nice to see him hanging out with his buddy.
The weird thing with David Lynch is until he was Gordon Cole in season 2 of Twin Peaks, he hadn't really had acting roles apart from like a couple of uncredited cameos in his own films and films his friends had done and stuff. But yeah, he's just really good at it.
It was probably a way of staying involved with the production, where
I think certainly as season 2 went on, they kept writing Gordon Cole appearances in to get him involved.
Yeah, get a bit of guidance on what the fuck
while
to
you're
do.
here, can you fucking rein some of this shit in? Like,
Yeah. I'm unsure whether to check out like a fan edit of season 2 to see if any of them are any good with the kind of focus on the maybe more Lynchian bits.
I feel like
I think you just need the whole thing. I know people get mad about like the James Hurley storyline and other stuff like that, but I just think that all of it does just pick like
I mean,
how brutal and violent and scary the ending is that brutal and violent and scary because you've had loads of weird, dumb soap opera bullshit beforehand.
Yeah. I think we've all watched some utter shit TV in our time, right? And I'm sure all our listeners are the same. Like, they've got enough time to listen to our podcast, so clearly quality control's an issue. Ultimately, this is like one of the best series of all time, and there's a run of about 8 bad episodes in it. And they're fucking miles worse than the rest, but if you know it's that short a time, you power through it. It's not like it's a literal soap opera where if it goes to shit, it might stay shit for a week, it might stay shit for 10 years.
I know people who watched all of Lost, so like you can watch a few episodes of Twin Peaks.
There's still good stuff in those episodes.
The first fucking serious TV show I got seriously into was The X-Files. Obviously the quality ratio on that was always all over the place and went really bad towards the end. Most shows are like that.
David Duchovny, Twin Peaks cast member.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the greats.
Yeah, that's another show that has loads of Twin Peaks alumni show up for an episode or two. It has Michael J. Anderson, the embittered man from another place, like one of the absolute best one episode appearances in any show ever.
He's so funny. He thinks David Lynch murdered Jack Nance, like Michael J. Anderson. He thinks David Lynch had Jack Nance
killed. That's not that
killed.
funny, to be fair.
Yeah, I think it's quite funny.
When you look into it, it's like, okay, actually the condition he has means his spine gets slowly driven up into his skull as he gets older and causes neurological problems.
Yeah.
But that unfortunately expresses itself with some really extreme anti-Semitism on social media.
Oh, really? I got to follow this dude.
Uh-oh.
I thought it was just stuff about Lynch being a rapist and murderer. I didn't know that you got anti-Semitism too.
Uh-oh.
If we both say uh-oh enough, then Jack will actually edit this bit out of the episode instead of putting it on and getting us into trouble further down the line. Uh-oh.
No, I don't think anyone gives a shit. Have any of you seen the Cleveland show? Speaking, because I've never watched that, obviously, but Lynch is in it. Lynch did.
Yeah, I've not seen it either. Again, find it as funny as everyone else that he's in it. It seems to be like sincerely. Hey, David, do you want to do this role in this cartoon? Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Where's his other works? Oh yeah, it would be. So he did. How many episodes of the Cleveland show? Let's see.
23, according to IMDb.
20 according to Wikipedia, but yeah, IMDb is probably more accurate. But he's also been in 2 episodes of Family Guy itself, don't worry. So yeah, he's a real regular in the Seth MacFarlane extended universe.
God.
Yeah, I'll stick with Louis, thank you very much. Real television. He was a producer on My Son, What Have Ye Done by Werner Herzog, which I think you have to say in a Werner Herzog voice. What have you done?
Yeah, what's that about?
It's Michael Shannon goes mental and murders his mum with a sword.
Oh, great!
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Herzog directed that in the same year he did Bad Lieutenant, Port of New Orleans with the god Nick Cage.
Yeah. I've seen Bad Lieutenant.
Fuck yeah.
Do you know what I definitely need to get round to actually finally watching? Now it's easily available when it never used to be.
The Cleveland show.
Yeah.
No, but you're on the David Lynch sitcom In the Wake of Twin Peaks.
Oh yeah,
on the air.
Yeah. He directed the first episode and co-wrote
starring
last.
Miguel Ferrer and Ian Buchanan, aka.
God, I don't even know what this is.
So a one-camera comedy, apparently, co-created with Mark Frost. Have either of you read any of Mark Frost's tie-in books with Twin Peaks?
Yes, yeah, I've got them both. Yeah, the first one's good, the second one's not so good, but they're interesting. Like
Isn't there an audiobook of one of them that has a lot of the actual cast reading the stuff?
I don't remember them having the cast in them. I might be wrong.
I might have got the wrong end of the stick.
An audiobook of either of them would be good. I think the audiobook would be more likely for the second one because that's more around the exact time span of the show.
I listened to it the other day.
That I wanted to listen to the audiobook anyway for some reason, but I haven't read
so the audiobook is the good one, The Secret History of Twin Peaks, which is basically like the history of the area and the lore and everything up to shortly before the original Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
So it's got the backstory of the town, but it's got like a lot of lodge lore and stuff like weaved into American history, which is like constantly battling between quite effective and really corny.
Yeah, there's some corny stuff in those books.
Like you know the green ring thingy from Firewalk with Me.
Yeah.
Right? If you accept this book as canon, Dick Nixon had that ring for a bit.
That's pretty funny. Neil Young shows up in the second book, like collaborating with Jerry Horn on a sound system.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
I
that
like that
sounds
bit, to be fair. That's 100%
believable.
plausible.
Yeah, because Jerry Horn is just stoned off his ass for the entirety of the return.
Yeah.
Thinks his foot is
good.
talking to him. Although, being the world of Lynch, I think it probably is. Yeah, but the first book, I don't know. I guess it's a one for the Dougie Mitford heads. Is it Mitford? I think it actually might be Mitford.
Yeah, one of the Mitfords is... Yeah, Dougie Mitford is in it a lot.
Known Nazi collaborator and brother of the mayor of Twin Peaks. Have I got the second part of that right? But the second...
Yes.
The second book is okay, but for a start, you were asking Lilah if it's read by any of the cast members. Even though it's written from the perspective of Agent Tammy Preston, they didn't even get Krista Bell to read it. It's like read by someone else, yeah.
Okay.
And the Albert bit isn't read by Miguel Ferrer, but I think he might have died by that point, so that kind of makes sense. But yeah, I didn't like it very much.
He was dead by then.
The final dossier, as it's called, there's some good bits in it, but there's also a lot of bits in it where it's just like, this is the shit that presumably David Lynch didn't want to put in the third season. And it's just like, I don't give a fuck about this stuff.
I quite like the bit that was like, here's what happened to Annie, the sort of closure on that.
That's
quite
good.
Effective.
The bits where he actually properly expands on, like, the mysteries of Twin Peaks are interesting. The bits where he's just like, and if you were wondering what this character has been up to in the past 25 years, it's just like...
Not really, yeah.
But it's alright, and I feel like in a project that's inextricably associated with the vision of a brilliant genius director, Mark Frost probably does get his contributions to the series he co-created kind of underplayed. So whilst I would not recommend following him on Twitter, because when I did, it was just all like Trump, Russia bullshit.
Is it really? I'm going to go and look at his Twitter.
Pro or anti?
Anti. Yeah, he's very, very resistance. I don't know what he's
there's
up to
like
now.
500 guys called Mark Frost and they all have blue ticks. I have no way of knowing which
Yeah.
The one you
that's
want to follow
Russia.
is the one that isn't an FBI man but writes like...
Oh,
them,
no,
whereas
the
all
one
others-
that's the real one doesn't have a blue tick. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. No, I think he'd be like, I won't give money to Elon Trump.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, David Lynch was a Bernie bro. So...
That is pretty cool. Yeah, I like that he supported Bernie.
Yeah.
Like, because he'd obviously he'd had a bit of a kind of conservative stink following him around for a lot of his years because people, rightly or wrongly, viewed him as a Reagan supporter. I don't know if he ever made...
Seems mostly to come from one slightly tongue-in-cheek interview. I don't think he was ever like a hardcore Reaganite.
I don't think he's ever been a big politics.
The dangerous thing is that he might have been like a sort of naturally leaning libertarian type guy for a bit.
That's
like,
not a problem for me. Number one Clint Eastwood fan. It's pretty funny, actually. Those are like two of my very favourite directors. They could not be further apart in style. But someone posted an interview with him from like the late 90s the other day where I think Mark Cousins or whoever the interviewer is tries to get him like 50 times to comment on Reagan, and there's like a Keir Starmer level of evading the question from Lynch that's actually quite impressive. But when it comes to sort of protecting your artistic legacy, I have more respect for avoiding a question than I do when it's Starmer trying to protect his own skin.
Mark Frost is, well, this is from a while ago. He is arguing on Twitter with somebody who says that Dr. Jacoby would vote for RFK Jr.
100% would. That's not contentious.
Yeah, but Mark Frost says not a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
he would have voted for RFK Jr., he would have voted for Ron Paul, and he probably would have voted for Bernie Sanders as well if he'd got the nomination.
Yeah, he seems to have a kind of vague anti-establishment politics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he basically is an Alex Jones XP in The Return.
Yeah.
So, like...
You gotta pick up the shovel and dig yourself out of the shit. Hey, got Nadine's life back on track. Who are we to criticize?
Yeah, good for Nadine.
Yeah. One of the characters who maybe people were happy to see her in The Return, but equally happy that she was not as major a character as she was in season 2.
That's actually one of my favourite comedy
cheerleader storylines.
That's one of my favourite comedy reveals in everything. Like the first couple of episodes of The Return, having interminable drawn-out scenes of the shovels getting spray-painted methodically one at a time gold. And it looks like Jacoby, but you can't really tell. And then, 5 episodes later, it's just this corny advert for them, and he's like, "Yeah, shovel yourselves out of the shit." Just cuts this long fucking libertarian wrestling style promo about why you should buy his.
Who plays him?
Gold-plated shovels.
Is it Russ Tamblyn who plays him?
Yeah, who's like a proper old school sort of theatrical guy, isn't he?
Mates with Neil Young, actually.
There's anything about it.
Again, that 100% figures.
If you want to watch something genuinely Lynchian, watch Neil Young's directorial feature debut, Human Highway, from 1982. It stars a bunch of Twin Peaks people. It's like a weird, surreal, nuclear-based comedy. Yeah, Russ Tamblyn, Dean Stockwell, Dennis Hopper.
Oh, all the greats. Yeah. All the greats.
Loads of people from the Lynch verse appear in it. I mean, it's more kind of Lynch-style comedy, but, it's fucking weird. So it's pretty Lynchian.
Russ Tamblyn is 90 now. Jesus.
Damn, man. He's, younger than Clint. That's what I'll say. Younger than Gene Hackman. Both those guys are still alive, and they're 94 and 95 respectively, so I feel like, come on, Gene, come out of retirement. Let's get one last great movie where you face off against Clint, but this time you're in diapers. I'll stop making fun of old people. We're just celebrating. We're celebrating the legacy of a great older man.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else? Anything else we want to touch on before we go?
I think we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
I think we have, haven't we? We've covered most of the main parts of his career and why we enjoy his work.
Yeah. Everybody, make sure you watch the 1942 horror movie Captain.
Yeah, it's the key to understanding all of Lynch's catalogue. You'll be able to follow.
That's how you unlock it.
You'll be able to follow all those plots.
Lilah will be putting out a list of 10 clues that you need to bear in mind whenever you watch Cat People, the original.
It is actually a pretty good movie.
Oh yeah, I need to watch that, to be fair.
We'll tell FFF it's a furry thing. He'll be right on that.
It kind of is, to be honest. It actually kind of is.
So. I'm just looking at the cast of The Return because it's just fucking spectacular. Michael Cera as Wally Brando.
That's my favorite. Wally Brando, born on the same day as Marlon Brando. But also, I'm pretty sure that they named him after the bird.
What? Is there a bird called Brando?
The minor bird from the original.
There's Waldo the bird.
Oh.
Who, they find in the cabin. But Waldo the bird gets shot on the same day that Lucy finds out that she's pregnant.
Oh, shit.
So that's my little theory there.
Oh my god.
That's one of the great one-scene characters of all time.
Yeah.
Fucking Balthazar
There's
Getty.
quite a lot of them in Twin Peaks, to be fair.
Of Lost Highway fame, Balthazar Getty appears in The Return. I didn't realise that. He plays Red, who... Yeah. Is that one of Mr. C's shithead criminal associates?
He's the local drug magnate guy who intimidates Cooper's son. And he's the one that's also going out with Shelley to really drive home the subtext that Shelley has fucking terrible taste in men.
Oh, that guy.
Poor Shelley.
Oh yeah, that's so sad when Bobby and
one of several things in the series that exists to make Bobby Briggs cry. That's always a good bit.
It's so sad when Bobby and Amanda Seyfried just sat there looking sad while she's out there making out with that guy.
Amanda Seyfried, I think, was one of my favourite performances in The Return. And I feel like if Lynch had been able to make other stuff, she would definitely be a Lynch girl.
Yeah,
you know
she was great.
She even has the right look.
I forgot that Dr. Will Hayward is played by Mark Frost's dad, who had died by the time the series came out. Mark Frost himself is in the series as Cyril Pons.
Who's
I don't fucking know.
He's the guy that's walking his dog and stumbles across the meth head hit guy with Alicia Witt in the woods.
Oh, right, okay.
That's so cold when Mr. C just sends his own son to certain death. He's like, goodbye, my son.
And it's like a comedy fucking electricity trap like you might find in fucking Diablo or something.
Yeah. And Jerry Horn is watching from an opposite hill and just has a fucking stoned freak out about it it and thinks he did it with his mind.
Yeah. Is there not like far too long where he's trying to figure out how to use the binoculars first?
Yeah.
Perfectly.
It's like an extended bit.
I love when Mr. C fucking just stoves that guy's face in with his fist. Just like after beating him in the arm wrestling match, he punches him square in the middle of the face and it just collapses. Unreal shit.
Yeah.
I can't wait to watch it all again.
Yeah.
It's going to be so fun to watch it with someone who hasn't seen it before as well, I think.
I rewatched this shortly after rewatching another Tarantino joint, The Hateful Eight, and that's got Tim Roth and Jennifer Jason Leigh in it, and then they both show up as a pair of hitmen in Twin Peaks: The Return.
Yeah.
Which
their subplot's pretty good. I like just the bizarre nature of the end of that as well.
Oh, yeah, it's so funny. They just get riddled with bullets. Again, drawing a line between Lynch's surrealism and just kind of like trashy, violent film noir and crime movies, which I'm so there for that. Do a movie that's like an art movie and a fucking head trip, but a bit of guns and shooting. That's what it's all about, It's a bit, it's rock and roll. But Lynch was actually, I will say, like, that has reminded me of something that I tweeted, which was that Lynch's films are very kind of accessible if you've come from a place of being a music obsessive on a number of levels, because he was obviously a huge music fan, as you can tell by the way that he prominently placed all these performances of songs and the songs themselves in his work, whether it's Dean Stockwell in Blue Velvet, whether it's Nick Cage's Elvis covers in Wild at Heart, or whether it's the Roadhouse, the Harry Dean Stanton performance, all the actual diegetic music performances you see throughout Twin Peaks: The Return. There's the fact that Lynch himself was a musician, and the fact that he made music that often appeared in his films and outside of his films as well. And then there's the fact that I think that his films, rather than a conventional narrative logic, they follow the logic of music or poetry, which goes back to the way that I compared him to the artistic process of Neil Young earlier. They don't go to a place because it makes objective sense. They go to a place because it feels right.
Yeah.
But now I've got that in, that's pretty much it. I've spent my...
That's a good ending, I think.
Thoughts.
That's a good end line.
R.I.P. David Lynch. Fucking great artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go and watch any of his films you haven't seen yet. Go and rewatch one you haven't seen in a long time. They pretty much all hold up well. Just a great body of work.
Yeah. Have a meditate.
Smoke 100 cigarettes a day for 68 years.
Ignore the woke Stasi of the Starmer government telling you it's bad for you.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck Starmer. Starmer out. If there is any explicit message throughout the work of David Lynch, I'd say it would be Starmer out.
Yeah. In light of David Lynch's tragic death following serious lung complaints, Politik demand the immediate resignation of Sir Keir Starmer.
Couldn't have put it better myself. Yeah, let's wrap up now. Send me your files, guys, and
Sure.
we'll get this out soon as.